Hi guys, it's Ty and welcome back to my channel. So today I am doing another recent reads. I have a mix of genres, I feel like just like I always do, but I actually have two 5-star books that I'm excited to talk about. So we will go ahead and just get started. So the first one that I have here is Goldilocks by Laura Lamb. This is a adult sci-fi novel, and I'm just gonna say it now, I DNF'd this, and I DNF'd it pretty early on. I only got 38 pages into this before I decided to give up. But with as far as I got, this one is about these women. I believe there was 5 of them. They decided that they were going to sneak on a spaceship and go into outer space to go to this new planet. I don't know why they decided to do that. Obviously, I didn't get far enough into the book to figure that out. But that's where I was at when I decided to put this down. It was just really boring. Nothing about this was keeping my attention. I listened to this on audio and the audio was just kind of blah. And I had put it out there on my Instagram that I was gonna go ahead and do just like a soft DNF and probably come back to it at a later date. But someone had told me that, yeah, you're not missing much, so just go ahead and DNF it. And I said, all right, that's it. That's all that I needed to know to not have to pick this back up. So maybe it'll work better for someone else, but this did not work for me. So then the next one we have is The Vicious Circle by Catherine St. John. This is a adult mystery thriller, and in this one we are following our main character by the name of Sweta. She has learned that her uncle Paul has died, and her uncle was like this really popular religious guru. He had like a lot of self-help books. He had retreats all over the place. And in one particular place that he had one of these like spiritual retreats was out in Mexico, and it was called Xanadu. So she learns from like their lawyer friend Lucas that her uncle Paul has left Xanadu to her. She is also informed that her uncle wants her to hopefully shut down Xanadu. So Sveta and Lucas go over to Mexico to Xanadu, and they learn that Paul's wife, Kali, has taken over the responsibilities of this retreat center, and she is the one leading it. And so it's up to Sveta and Lucas to try to stop her and get this place shut down. I rated this one a 2 stars. The one thing that I did like about this, and you learned very early on, that this is basically a cult. And so we get some insights into the cult, its practices, why people end up going over to Xanadu, and we learn how it's potentially tied to another cult that was over in the United States. I also really liked learning about Paul and how he started these retreat centers and how he was involved with Xanadu and what happened to him the last time he went to go visit Xanadu. But then when it comes to my dislikes, even though I enjoyed, learning about the cult and the history and how it started, it just felt like a very stereotypical cult. When you hear the word cult and whatever it is that you think a cult is, this is what is in this book. It did nothing different. It didn't go outside of the box. Nothing like that. And I wish that it did, because we all have our ideas of what a cult is, and I love stories about cults because I'm always so interested in why these people join these cults. But this just did absolutely nothing different. And one thing that I thought was funny and kind of irritating was that the main character had to be told that this place was a cult. Like, girl, open up your eyes. You are over here, you are seeing these people chanting and drinking tea all the time and doing all of these cult-like things, and yet somebody still had to tell her that this was a cult. Okay. I also just thought that this story was very, very slow moving into like the last third when everything started to pick up. But it just took a lot to get through. Again, I did like the cult aspect, but I just thought that this was a very, very slow story. So I just ended up giving it a 2 stars. So then the next one that we have is The Grace Year by Kim Liggett. This is a young adult dystopian. And so in this one, we are following our main character by the name of Tierney. I believe she's like around 16 years old. And in their world, their society, it is believed that women possess like this magic to lure men. They believe that this magic that these women have is like some sort of like aphrodisiac to distract men. And so every year, girls have to go experience their grace year to rid themselves of this magic. At the beginning of this, Tierney is at that age where now she has to go and experience her grace year. No one knows exactly what takes place during the grace year. They do know that some girls return, some girls do not, and Tierney is obviously terrified to go through her grace year. This book just follows Tierney and the other girls that are sent out into the wild to go through their grace year, and Tierney learns some things about this grace year and about the place that she grew up that might not be all of what it seems. So I gave this one a 3 stars. I really liked the commentary in this story. So it really talks about how women aren't treated equally, how men claim that they're afraid of these women, but yet they will still try to take control over the women. It also talks about how women are more susceptible to believe anything that you tell them. And I really liked that once these girls went into their grace year, they are literally put out into the wild. And the story kind of turns into like Lord of the Flies, where these girls are going against each other to try to survive during their grace year, because they are literally out in the wild for a year. And obviously everybody wants to make sure they come back. I also thought that this had a bit of a horror element because you don't really know what the grace year is. Some things happened while these girls are out in the wild that some could consider creepy. I thought that the idea of this was horrifying if something like this actually happened, but I do think that there are a few little horror elements sprinkled in. What I didn't like about this book is I thought parts of it were like really slow. Once they got out into their grace year, parts of it just wasn't really moving as fast as I would like it to. And then I really didn't like the ending of the story. I was on board with the majority of what was going on, but when we got to the end and how it concluded, I just was not a fan. So overall, I gave this one a 3 stars. So, and next up we have Heartstopper Vol.4. This is a young adult romance graphic novel series. And as you guys know, I was trying to hurry up and read all of the volumes that are currently out before the 2nd season of the show was released, which I was able to do. And spoiler alert, I love the 2nd season just as much as I loved the 1st season. But in this one, it is primarily just following, obviously Nick and Charlie again, but we are seeing Charlie struggle with his mental health, and we see how Nick is encouraging and always by his side. I still gave this one a 3 stars. I do like these and I do want to continue to read them. They just aren't wowing me the way that the show is. And I think that is just because I can visually see their relationship and just not read about it. But I do like these. I did like how supportive Nick was throughout Charlie's entire process and him dealing with his mental health. I really like Tori in this story, which is Charlie's older sister, and how she was able to stand up for him. So I still like their relationship. I like that the story goes a lot deeper than these two people being in a relationship with each other, and I am looking forward to continuing on in this series. So then the next book that I want to talk about is Mr. Magic by Kirsten White. This is a adult mystery. So I don't have a physical copy of this book. I'm pretty sure I'm probably going to try and get a physical copy of it. I received an ARC from NetGalley, and this book is already out. It came out on August 8th. So in this story, we are following this character by the name of Val. At the very beginning, we learn that her father has just passed away. And during the funeral, these 3 guys come to her and tell her that, hey, we were looking for you, happy we found you, but we are going to be doing interviews for this podcast that's going to be talking about the show, Mr. Magic, that we all, including her, was a part of. Val is totally confused because she has no recollection of ever being on this show, Mr. Magic. They tell her, well, yep, you were, so you can come with us and participate in these interviews. She decides that she's gonna go ahead and go with them since her father is no longer with her, and she's very intrigued because she does have snippets of memory for something. She's just not exactly sure what it is. So they also tell her that, you know, your mother's alive. This is news to her because she was told that her mother was dead. So she also thinks that this is gonna be a time for her to reconnect with her mother. So when they all get to the house, it's Val, the 3 guys, and then another girl by the name of Jenny. These people were all a part of this show when they were younger, so when they were about 8 or 9. But they all have different memories of what took place on that show. we as the reader are trying to figure out whether or not this was actually a real show, because their memories are kind of skewed of what happened back then. We have these chapters where it's like forums, emails, just different conversations that other people are having about the show. And we learn that there's not a lot of information on the internet about the show. Anytime like a clip appears or an article appears or something, it's immediately scrubbed from the internet. So you're just trying to figure out what the heck is going on with the show, and how are these guys tied to the show? Were they really on a show? We are just following Val and these characters as they are remembering their time on this show. So I gave this one a 3 stars. I really did enjoy it. I loved the intrigue of trying to figure out whether or not Mr. Magic was a show. This just kept my attention from start to finish, because I just wanted to know what the heck was happening with this show. I also liked the format of the book and how in every few chapters we were getting like the mixed media talking about the show and other people's perspective of the show, because it was just another way to keep me invested into the story. I also thought that there were some creepy elements to this as well, because there are some descriptions of Mr. Magic. Some creepy things happen in this house that they're all staying in. There's also some conversation around children and how they deal with trauma, how sometimes they repress trauma, because you can slowly start to figure out throughout the story what exactly is going on. At the same time, they're kind of figuring out what exactly is going on with this show as well. What I did not like about this book, and what really kept me from giving it a 4 stars, is that the ending for me was very confusing. Even though by the time we got to the end, I could already kind of see where it was going, but I just felt like the ending made it so much more confusing, and it just left me with a lot of questions. Sometimes that will work for me in the ending of a book, sometimes it won't, but in this one, I just wanted all of my questions answered. So like I said, I gave this book a 3 stars. I really did enjoy it. I would highly recommend this book. I don't think that it is going to work for everybody just because of how weird it is. That's the best way for me to describe it. But if it sounds interesting, I would definitely give it a try. I just really wish that the ending worked better for me, but other than that, I really did enjoy it. So the last 2 books that I'm going to talk about are my 2 5 stars. And the first one that I want to talk about is A December to Remember by Jenny Bayliss. This is not yet released. It comes out September 26th, but this is another book that I was able to get an ARC for from NetGalley. And like I said already, I gave this one a 5 stars. This is my 3rd book by this author, and 2 of them that I have read 5 stars. So she is an auto-buy author for me for sure. So in this one, we are following 3 sisters. We have Maggie, Star, and Simone. And they all have the same father, but different mothers. So these are half sisters. And their father, we are told in the beginning of the story, has passed away. Now, their relationship with their father has been strained since they have been adults. In the summer times when they were younger, they used to all come together in the same town that their father lived, and they would visit him for like 4 weeks out of the summer. The sisters would spend time together, and they really had a good relationship when they were younger. Throughout the years, as they were getting older, the relationship between the sisters was strained as well. When they learned that he died, they all come back to the town. Well, Maggie, I believe, who's the older sister, she already lives in the town, but the other 2 came into town so that they could get the reading of the will. At the reading of the will, they learn that their father's shop that he used to have like this trinket shop. Everything is going to be appraised, and he is leaving the shop to them. But in order for them to get like the paperwork for the shop, they have to go in the shop and find like these random Monopoly pieces that he put in there. And once they find all the pieces, they'll get the paperwork for the shop, but then he also wants them to reignite like the winter solstice in their town. So it was like this winter celebration that the town used to do, but they no longer did, and his father wants the sisters to bring that back. So of course they were able to find what they needed to find, and now we are watching them plan this winter solstice together for the town. Not only are we doing that, but we also learn a lot about these 3 sisters, because they got some stuff going on in their personal lives. So one of the sisters, she is dating someone that is like 10 years younger. She is struggling with about to get evicted from where she lives, and she just got a lot going on in her personal life. The other sister, she is married to a woman, and they are trying to have a baby, but they are dealing with a lot of infertility issues. So they are trying to figure out how they are going to navigate around that, because the sister really wants to have a baby, but she is just struggling trying to have one herself. And so her and her partner have to figure out what they're going to do, and it has really put a strain on their relationship. And then the other sister, the last sister, she is like a wild child, kind of. She kind of moves from place to place. She doesn't have a stable place to live. She doesn't have a stable place to work. Her boyfriend is a hot mess. He was into drugs. He just got released out of jail and is trying to track her down. And so each of these sisters has a lot going on in their personal lives. They don't really get along with each other, and now they are forced to come together to put on this winter festival. I enjoyed this story from start to finish. First off, it did put me in the holiday spirit. I read this back in like July. I was ready for it to be Christmas at that point while I was reading this book. I just loved the holiday feel with them putting on this winter celebration. I also loved learning about the sisters. Me and my sister are really close, so I love any story that has to do with like anything between sisters. And I just love seeing their relationships evolve over the course of the story. And I love just watching them try to figure out the issues that they're having in their personal lives and then how they come together to help each other. I plan to get a copy as soon as it is released in September. I hope you guys will do the same, because this is one of her books that I would highly recommend. The other book that I read for her that I gave a 5 stars was The 12 Dates in Christmas. And I would say they are about neck and neck with which one even though I gave them both 5 stars, I still think that The 12 Dates of Christmas was slightly better, just because I thought that book was very humorous, and I had a really fun time reading that one. But I would say if you have not checked out anything by Jenny Bayless, I would suggest that you do. And I would suggest that you check out this book that is released in September. And then the last 5 star that I have to talk about is The Only One Left by Riley Sager. So I've technically already talked about this book. I have a video where I talk about all of Riley Sager's books, so I will have that video linked in case you guys are interested. But I freaking love this. And I was nervous going into this one after the catastrophe of the book that was released last year, The House Across the Lake. And then with so many people saying that this was one of Riley Sager's best books, I was just hesitant to go into this because I did not want to be disappointed, and I was not. So in this story, there is this woman by the name of Lenora Hope, and she, back in 1929, she was accused of murdering her whole family. So that was her mother, her father, and her older sister. And she was let go because there wasn't enough evidence to convict her. But of course, everybody in the town that she lives in believed that she actually did it, and there was even a rhyme about her committing these murders to her family. Fast forward to 1983, Lenora is still living in her childhood home, but she has suffered several strokes. She is basically paralyzed except for the use of her left hand, so she has to have caregivers come out and help take care of her. So enters Kit, who is a caregiver, but she is recently coming back from a suspension from her job because there was a patient that she was taking care of that died under mysterious circumstances, and Kit was investigated for that, but ultimately found she did nothing wrong. So now she is back to work. Her job technically doesn't want to keep her, but they decide that they will let her take care of Lenora because the last person that was taking care of her just upped and left in the middle of the night. Kit doesn't really want to because she knows about Lenora's past, but decides she has to do it because she needs money, and this is probably the only job that she's going to get because of what happened with her last patient. So while Kit is at Lenora's home taking care of her, she kind of gets a little bit of insight into what happened to this previous caregiver that left. She speaks with like the chef that works there. There's a housekeeper. There's also like a groundskeeper. So there are other people at this house with them. And then she starts to get to know Lenora a little bit more, and she learns that she can actually communicate with Lenora. And Lenora can tap out her responses. She can tap like 1 tap for yes, 2 taps for no, something like that. And she can also use the typewriter. And so one day Lenora lets Kit know that she is ready to tell her entire story about what happened the night her family was murdered. And so then this book turns into like a book within a book, because we are getting typewritten chapters of Lenora's story. Like I said, I gave this 5 stars. I absolutely love this. I just loved like the gothic feel of this, with them being like somewhat isolated in this house that sits on top of a cliff. The big thing that I liked about this was all of the twists and reveals that we got at the end. My only dislike for this, that also goes into my likes, is that I thought that all of the twists and the reveals that we got happened too fast at the end, and I wish that they were spread out a little bit more throughout the story. But overall, I loved every single one of the twists and reveals that we got in this book. There were like a couple of them that I could kind of figure out, but everything else I had no idea, and my mouth was like on the floor as I was reading like the last third of this book. There was one twist in here for sure that I didn't really know if I liked it or not, but the more and more I thought about it and sat with it, I was like, man, that takes some dedication to keep that going. So if you know, you know what I'm talking about. But if you don't know what I'm talking about, then you should pick up this book and read it so that you will know what I'm talking about, because this was excellent. It's not my absolute favorite by Riley Sager. The one that I liked more than this one is The Last Time I Lied. But this is up there, and I would highly, highly recommend. So that is all that I have for you guys. Again, I will have my Riley Sager video linked down below in case you guys are interested. But I will see you guys next time. Bye.